Hello everybody and welcome to It's a Numbers Game. I'm Adam Morris, joined by my partner in crime and co-host Daniel Welling. Thanks for being with us. Today we are lifting the lid on MSP M&A, the real owner-to-owner stuff. Between us, we've built, run and exited MSPs, and now we mentor owners on growth, profit and getting deals over the line. A quick heads up on this episode though. It's a live recording from our MSP Show presentation in London earlier this year. And the audio, as you might expect, isn't studio crisp. And the format is a presentation. So you'll miss some of the body language, but hopefully still get a ton of value from the content. In this episode, you'll learn how buyers and sellers should prepare, the numbers, the narrative, and the team. What really goes into heads of terms, what's binding, what isn't, and the handful of clauses that make or break your leverage. And valuation and structure in practice, normalized EBITDA, cash versus earnout, risk sharing, and how trust and a single client wobble can swing a deal. Let's get into it.
Okay. Oh, brilliant. We're on. Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for joining Adam and I today. We appreciate your company and look forward to entertaining and educating, hopefully, during the session today. So Adam and I are very lucky. We've been invited back for a second year running by the organisers of the show. And we really would like you to give some positive feedback, hopefully, after our session so that they invite us back for a third year and maybe even a fourth year running as well, because last year we started the M&A topic talking about valuations and management accounts. This year we've advanced our topic through to negotiation and heads of terms. And next year we'd like to talk about due diligence, completing a deal, and then in year 4 we'd like to talk about actually integrating our acquisition. So that's part of the audience participation for today.
Great. Again, nice to see everybody. Just before we introduce ourselves, quick hands up. Who in the audience is currently thinking about M&A, either acquiring or exiting their businesses? Hands up, those people. Okay. Good to see you here. Hopefully there's some good takeaways for you. A little bit about myself and Dan. We both had MSPs. Dan exited his in the teens and I exited mine 4 years ago. And we came together when we realized that there was something missing in the MSP industry around the level of mentoring and financial literacy for MSPs in particular. My own story is that I learned the hard way around building a business, how to price it, how to make good margins and how to build good profit until ultimately I could generate the value in my business to give me the number that I wanted. So this is a big passion for both of us to educate the MSP market around growth, around creating profit, around pricing. And we do that through our mentoring services. We do it through our bookkeeping and management accounts, FD services and accountancy services.
Okay. So I did promise you some entertainment. Accomplished MSP owners as Adam and I are, we also want to be thespians. So today we are going to incorporate into our program a role play of a negotiation between a buyer and a seller. And for those of you familiar with the Matthew Kelly in the 80s show, Stars in Their Eyes, tonight, Matthew.
Oh, hang on. Oh, I'm going to be the buyer. And Fan is going to be the seller. So before we get into the negotiations, a little bit of background for each of us so we can put this into context. So I've got a business called Moserology. We're about 3 million in revenue. We've grown over the last 15 years or so. We're based around Bath, 25 employees. And whilst we're very profitable and we've got generally good organic growth, it's still that kind of 10% a year-ish type of figure. We did do a little acquisition last year of about 500,000, which was okay, not great, but we want to kind of kick on. And we understand to build value, if we can increase our EBITDA north of 6, 7, 800K, maybe 1 million. Now we're really starting to drive some really nice multiples. And we could continue to grow organically, but actually I want to do that quicker. So we're talking about acquisition as a way to accelerate that process and generate an acceleration on the multiple. I'm quite a cautious person, don't like a lot of risks. It's quite scary for me. I did learn some lessons in the last acquisition we did a year ago, but I am still quite risk averse. But the good news is that we have a great leadership team in our business. We've worked hard on our culture and our service delivery, and I think we're ready for that next big acquisition.
Okay, and then on to Dan the seller. So we've resurrected, as we had last year, our example business, Well-Managed IT, named after the founder, chairman, and head of sales and everything else, Daniel Welling. We have a slightly smaller business than Adam's. We're 1.5 million, 15 people. We are based towards London along the M4, M40 corridor in the beautiful town of Marlow. And anyone that isn't familiar with Marlow, you must book a visit and give me a shout when you're here, and I'll be very happy to walk you around, take you to some of the local pubs and attractions. The good thing about living in Marlow is we're about an hour, give or take, on a train into central London. And that is where the majority of our client base is, although we do have some customers in the home counties and working out towards Bath and towards Adam. So I've been in business for 12 years. It's been one customer won, one customer lost. It's been found my star employee, lost my star employee, and that cycle's kind of repeated itself. But over time, I've gradually built up to the level that I am today. However, it's not been without cost. And in truth, I've had enough. I'm ready to sell for the right price. And I've also, during the last 12 years, developed an interest in the strategic VCIO end of the MSP service offering. And that's something that I think I enjoy far more than the operational day-to-day IT side of things. And therefore, I sort of see myself as doing that in the future and for the indefinite future. So, just to give you a bit of a feel as to what's going to happen next, as we follow the fictional but inspired by true events story of Moserology looking to acquire Well-Managed IT, we're going to cover a couple of key topics for you. We're going to look at the preparation that both the buyer and the seller have been through. We're going to look at the role of advisors. We're going to look at how a deal is evaluated and evolves during the process of negotiation. We're going to obviously talk a little bit about heads of terms. And finally, as we've said already, you're going to be treated to Adam and I's acting debut. Please be kind with your reviews.
So I guess the question is, why does M&A matter for MSPs? And the answer is ultimately that whether you like it or not, everyone who has an MSP will be exiting. You might not be alive, but you will exit. So I would argue it's better to think ahead, think about, create a life plan, work on your life plan, and try and get some clarity on what an exit's for. What is it? How does it? In what way is it meaningful? What does it need to generate financially for you? And what impact you want it to have in your life? It's going to happen. It's going to happen. So better to prepare for it and be intentional around shaping what you want that exit to be like. So this is a key area of the MSP journey, from startup to growth to exit, and something that Dan and I are heavily involved with our clients. And what are some of the things going on here? What does the buyer want? What does the seller want? You know, the buyer's about managing risk. He's about client retention, perhaps staff retention, and generating an ROI. And how can they scale confidently? What does the seller want? Well, he's probably got a list of things he wants, right? If he's thought about this, somewhere near the top is probably the value. But there might be other things as well, like what happens to his clients, what happens to his employees. There may be something deeply rooted there that's vital for him. Does he want a role? Is there some kind of role he wants following the sale? So ultimately, out of all of this is poor preparation is going to lead to a poor result. And that's kind of one of the key messages we want to pull together today.
So let's start with some of the preparations that I've been through as the seller. Well, this decision to sell, to have an aspiration to sell, hasn't been reached overnight. It's built up over a number of years. And that's good news because I've had that time in which to prepare. The sort of preparation I've done is I've been working on building my business to a profitable and sustainable, really getting it to a point where it's the easiest to run that it has been so far. And I've done that by focusing on things like recurring revenue. I focused on building profitability over time. I've also had to master financial reporting because for me to have any idea as to how profitable or not I am, I need to have good, reliable numbers. I've also been, over the past few years, immersing myself in the topic of mergers and acquisitions. I've been learning the lingo, such as an IM, information memorandum, which in M&A is the only time I've ever had that phrase presented to me. And basically it means a sales brochure for my business so that I can convey to the buyer the key attributes so the buyer can obviously decide if they're interested in taking things further, in booking a test drive. And the other thing that I've been looking at is the structure of my team, because I'm aware, having immersed myself in the topic of M&A, that everybody tells me that the least I'm involved in the business, the more it will be worth, because the lower the adjustment will be made for when I'm removed from the business. So I've been really focusing on my team. But as I said earlier, that's a bit tricky because I get a good guy, a good lady working for me, and then they decide they want to go somewhere else, and then I have to start all over again.
Right, the buyer's preparation. So I've got to be really clear about what I want out of this next deal. I'm making good EBITDA myself, but as I said before, I want the amount of EBITDA to increase so I can drive the value in the business, drive the multiple of EBITDA. But the other key piece here is that in order to get a good loan, I've got to have really clean books and I've got to have a really good proposal to show the lenders. The stronger my EBITDA, the stronger my recurring revenue, the stronger my contracts with my clients, the better the reporting I have of my financial information. If I've got great, clean accounts which go back at least 3 years, this is all really going to help in my favor. So I've been working hard on that and talking to a number of lenders through a broker. And I decided just to go with one broker and they're going to sort that lending for me. They think they can probably find 850K for me around the kind of 10% interest rate on a term loan over 5 years. So I've done the maths, and because we're making great profits in the business, I can afford 200K over 5 years. So this is looking fine. This is looking good. They're also, by the way, interested on the outcome of the sale. So I've produced some forecasts which show where we are today and what we would look like for year 1, year 2, and year 3 following an acquisition, and how we can bolt on additional EBITDA into that. And another key thing here is, what are the synergies I can make with an acquisition? Often there's going to be some human costs, compensation costs, which maybe I can get some synergies from. So the other aspect here is, well, where do you start? If you're looking to acquire a business, you could go out to a broker. And I did do that the first time round. It was okay. It was not great. As I said before, we did get our fingers burnt a little bit around the fit with the clients of that acquisition and our clients, and the pricing, so that we did have a bit of churn with the clients that we took on before. So this time round, we're going direct. I'm managing it myself. I've got time in the business to focus on this. So I'm going along to a lot of events. I'm connecting via LinkedIn, and I'm building a CRM database of prospects to buy. It's just like marketing, exactly the same. There's no shortcut to this. It's about kissing enough frogs, and hopefully one of them will become a prince. So that's what I'm doing. I've probably got a database of 300-400 MSPs in my CRM, and I'm talking to them regularly and having great conversations. The other key bit here in terms of preparing is making sure my team's ready for this. So can we handle the capacity? Have we got the right tech stack in place? Have we pulled together automation where appropriate? We want to drive EBITDA in the business, not just increase revenue and increase costs as much as possible. So that component is another key aspect of what we're trying to do.
And for those of you listening carefully, you will have just heard Adam call me a frog. Yeah. So we, as Adam has described, we've taken a slightly less active approach to advisory here in our journeys. Adam, over time, has built his knowledge of mergers and acquisitions. He's done his own deal origination process, which he sent a letter connected on LinkedIn to me. I got the letter, it went in a drawer, because on that day I was actually pretty happy. But the next day, Monday morning, 11 o'clock, I thought, there's a letter in that drawer. I'm going to pull that out and I'm going to give Adam a call. And Adam was very gracious to answer the call and give me a little bit of time. And that was how we began our negotiation effectively on that phone conversation. I began to know, like, and trust Adam. but you will need advisors throughout the process. And I've surrounded myself with accountant, with legal contacts, with commercial people, such as MSP mentoring, to help me in preparation, but also to be there as part of my team when I'm ready to begin a transaction. Finally, heads of terms. What exactly is it? So again, this is one of those M&A topics that you don't get to hear in everyday life. Heads of terms is actually a non-binding legal agreement. What it is intended to do is to pull together the various points of discussion, negotiation and preference that have been explored during those conversations. To cite or to quote Theresa May, nothing's agreed until everything's agreed. And not that we want to associate our heads of terms to the Brexit agreement. Very much it is that we're going to talk about lots of things and we need to clearly put them together so that we recollect them correctly and so that we can express that to our advisors, our partners. Our solicitor will take that document and start to craft the share purchase agreement from the substance that we've agreed as buyer and seller.
And what might be a target valuation here? So just before we start that negotiation, it's worth just having a look at how the market may determine the valuation. So what have we got? We've got a 1.5 million business in terms of revenue. He's got an additional 500k of cash sitting on his balance sheet, which he's amassed over the last few years from the retained profits in the business. He's quite an astute chap, this Dan, so he thinks he can get that at a low tax level. And he tells me he's making 300k EBITDA. So I've had a look at the P&L. I'm a bit of a data geek, so this is my kind of comfort zone here. And I see that he's calling it 300k of EBITDA based on the fact that he's drawing 100k. So the adjusted EBITDA, including his 100k, would be 400k. If we take Dan's 100k out, he's saying there's 300k profit. I disagree. I think in order for me to find someone to replace the market value of Dan, where we've got an MD, we've got a sales director, probably a marketing director, there's a bit of account management in there, there's a bit of finance director in there as well. Do you know what? I'm going to have to spend more than 100k. I think the market value is 150k. So I'm suggesting that the normalized EBITDA is 250. In other words, when we're talking about actual profit and normalized profit, it's 250, not 300, not 400. So I would say if you're having initial discussions about what profit is a business making, you need to be really clear right from the outset. Are you talking about normalized, adjusted, or something else? Really key point. So the last bit here is, well, what might this be worth on the marketplace today? It might be worth 5 times, probably somewhere between 4 and 6 for that kind of multiple. And if we include his dollop of cash, we have an enterprise value around the 1.75 million.
I'm pretty sure there was 1 or 2 compliments in there. Thank you, Adam. He's just warming me up, though, for the negotiation.
Ah, right. We have the negotiation. So Dan, how you doing? Nice to see you.
Hello.
Really pleased that we've got together again. And obviously we've had a couple of meetings so far and we had that delicious lunch, didn't we? That I treated you to.
Yeah, absolutely. I love a happy meal.
So I've obviously been giving this a lot of thought, Dan, and, thanks for supplying me with all the data that you've given me so far. I've spent quite a lot of time getting my head around it. And I think we disagree slightly on the profit that you think you're making. I think it's more like 250 rather than 300. And as you know, I've done a lot of work around M&A in the past, and I want to come back to you because I really like your business and I want to make a serious offer here. I think there's a lot of things that are a really good fit between us. In particular, I like the fact that we share the same PSA. I like the fact that we both do traction, right? We've already got businesses which are aligned on how we go about building our business. A lot of the tech stack overlaps as well, not all of it. Bit of a concern about some of the previous churn you've had in the business. But the other key thing, or 2 key things, I like your geography. I like you're based close to London. I want to work more in London. We're Bath-based at the moment, so it's a bit of a trek. So this will help with that. The other thing we're not great at is our kind of Azure cloud adoption and strategies and skill sets. Dan is very strong in this area. So I like all this. Anyway, look, let's get back to the valuation. I am going to offer you 1.6 million enterprise value. So that's 500,000 of retained earnings in there, which means the equity value is 1.1. So I'm going to find 1.1 million. I'm going to structure the deal though. So there's some risk sharing. I'm going to structure it with an earnout of 400k of that 1.6 million enterprise value to be paid over 2 years. 200k per year for year 1 and year 2. So your multiple of EBITDA is about 4.4. What do you think of that offer, Dan?
Well, this is me negotiating, by the way, everybody, or acting as though I'm negotiating. It's not every day, Adam, that I'm offered £1.6 million. And I could be flattered by that, and a little part of me says that I am. However, as Adam quite rightly said, I'm astute. And I came to the table, to the market, with an expectation of 2 million, not 1.75 million. But Adam, I haven't just plucked this number out of the air. My 300,000 EBITDA, which I thought was very fair, I think 5 times is the rate. And add to that my cash that I've got on the balance sheet, that brings me to 2 million. Now, that might be what I believe the business is worth. It is also what I require from the sale, because I've also been reading about the FIRE movements, financial independence, retire early. Not that I'm too worried about the retire early part, because I like what I do, but I do want to achieve financial independence from this transaction. And what the general consensus is that we need 25 times our annual income as a pot in order for that pot to persist through increasing value and our annual drawing from that pot, so that I can then leave my family effectively a pot of 2 million, and I've earned, in this case, 80 grand a year from that pot. So, Adam, this is probably the biggest sale of my life, and I really want to get it right.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate the clarity on that. And look, it's important for you to know what you truly want, because I don't want to be mucked about on this deal, right? We've already put in significant amount of time on this. I feel like we're actually quite close here. I think there's a deal we can do. I do have a niggle though. I'm a bit concerned about what you want to do afterwards. You've kind of hinted at this, but I don't truly understand.
Well, Adam, I would like to provide IT consultancy moving forwards.
Yeah, see that word consultancy. What do you mean?
As I said earlier, I kind of enjoy doing the VCIO, the strategic side. So I'd like to be providing that service to end user businesses directly.
Is that your phone ringing, Dan?
Yes. That coming through the speaker? Yeah. Almost as if we'd rehearsed it. Oh, yeah. And now I need to take the call. Yeah. Hi, Liam. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Oh. Well, thanks for ringing me, Liam. That's great news. Thank you.
Everything okay, Dan?
Well, clearly I'm not a very good actor because I'm struggling to hide this disappointing news. And that was Liam, my service manager. We've got a client that's approximately 10% of our business, and we have a service delivery issue, and they're officially at risk of leaving.
Wow.
There's no way I can sugarcoat that. I wish I hadn't answered the phone now.
I appreciate the honesty, Dan. What timing? As I said to you earlier, I'm already nervous around that whole client retention piece. Now you've just added another bolt out of the blue. Yeah, this is a concern.
If I may, I believe your business is far more mature and capable. And actually, I think there's an opportunity here for Adam to turn around the service delivery issues that I've had. His team will be much more capable of retaining the clients than perhaps I'm able to alone.
Were you in sales by any chance, Dan?
Certainly more sales than act.
Yes. So, look, I've given this some thought. This is, of course, why we have this earnout structure in place. I'm pleased that you're on board with that 400k earnout. So that's going to help me manage that risk. And, if this client leaves, do you know what? There'll be less earnout for Dan. So On that basis, I'm going to make a firm and final offer. I am going to move my multiple up to 5 based on that 250. So there'll now be a 1250 equity value of the business plus your 500 of retained earnings, which gives you 1750 enterprise value. Do we have a deal, Dan?
And we will pause the negotiation there for another 80s TV reference, the Magnum-esque turn to camera, talking to the audience. So I'm clearly here down on my expectation. I'd set 2 million as my target. I've got 1750. £250,000 is a lot of money to anybody. But what Adam's saying, I've heard before multiple times and multiple sources. So perhaps I do actually believe what he's saying.
What's key for me here is I really trust him, right? I've worked hard on building this relationship. He was direct and honest as soon as he got that bad news. You know what? That reassures me massively. It means there's probably less likelihood of there being skeletons in the cupboard post-sale. Do you know what? That counts for a lot here. The other thing is, I think this is a great deal for me. Do you know what? This earnout is going to effectively pay for the first 2 years. I'm only really there for putting together 3 years of multiple of EBITDA. And with the synergies, I think I can make another 100, 150 here. So look, don't tell Dan, but I think I've got a great deal.
And thankfully, I can hear none of that. Resume negotiation.
Anybody got any questions up to this point? Any thoughts? No? Well, crack on.
Resume negotiation.
So, Dan, I've offered you the new enterprise value. I think we're there. I just need to manage this risk around your consultancy. So, look, we just need a standard 3-year non-compete clause in the share and purchase agreement. It's all standard. It's all perfectly normal. And, I mean, we're happy with that, right, Dan?
But, Adam, I came here thinking that I was going to do a 1-year non-compete maximum.
Is that my phone ringing? That's my phone ringing now. Hello? Oh, hi, Bob. How you doing? It's Bob. He's from the finance broker. Yeah, good, thanks. Good. What's that? You've got some bad news? What? Dan's accounts don't stack up in quite the way you thought they would. What? You can only offer me $500,000? You mean I'm 350 short? Okay, man. Okay, Bob. All right, I'll speak later. Wow. Well, this is embarrassing, actually. A bit embarrassing, Dan. But that was my finance broker. I'm going to have to rethink the earnout component here because basically I'm now short from my original loan of 850. He's now offering me 500 because there was an issue with your accounts. So, look, I want this to go ahead, but we're going to have to shift that earnout from 400 to 850 now.
Okay. We should definitely stop answering our phones when we're in a meeting.
I think you're right.
There's one lesson there. I don't know. I feel like this is getting too far away from the 2 million I wanted, and I expected to be maybe not working for a year, and now I'm going to have less money and potentially 3 years that I can't earn any money, and also 3 years that I'm going to go completely stir crazy, not doing anything day to day because I don't play golf. So I don't think this is going to work for me, Adam. I'm stepping away.
Wow. Okay. It's a good deal. We know it's a good deal. I've done the maths. I've run the maths several times. I've managed my risk. Do you know what? Do I want to let this deal just sit through for 350K? I've got a Ferrari in the garage. I hardly ever drive it. I mean, that's going to go a long way, isn't it? So look, if I meet this 350, which I'll take on board as my problem, and if we're ready to go ahead based on 1750, is there anything you can do about that exclusivity deal?
Well, you can see I'm edging closer again to Adam here. And if you're prepared to sell that Ferrari, which I know
it's your
pride and joy, I know. If you're prepared to do that, then perhaps I'm prepared to have a 2-year holiday and meet you in the middle on 2 years on the non-compete.
We got a deal, Dan?
They say that if neither party is happy, it's probably the right deal.
Hey, hurrah. Did you say you wanted to buy the Ferrari as well?
I might be interested in that. Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely. So, we are now back to regular Adam and Dan. We wanted just to summarise a couple of key points here. We're hoping that this will naturally lead us into the Q&A, and I'm sure you're all itching to put your hand up with a question or a comment. But just some of the takeaways we thought were relevant here. We've obviously talked about the importance of preparation. Ultimately, good businesses buy good businesses. So both need to be financially and structurally strong to not only get a deal across the line, but also to then make it work, which you'll hear more about in 2027 when you come back here following that great feedback. We've talked about the importance of immersing ourselves in a topic, having advice in an appropriate and sustained way. We've talked about the importance of heads of terms and what the purpose of that is in a transaction. And Adam, do you want to finish off the last couple of points?
So just a few other points. You want to be in a good place as a business, both from a selling and buying perspective. You don't want to be a distressed sale if you can possibly avoid it, obviously. But likewise, as a buyer, you want to make sure you're in a good place from an EBITDA. And if you've got lurking problems from a delivery perspective, probably fix those before you start acquiring other companies, which is just going to layer on more pain. So the trust thing, the hiding the issues thing, do you know what? Just come straight out with anything. Let's not have any skeletons there. They're going to surface anyway in the due diligence. So better to get them right out in the open, start building that relationship, start having a direct dialogue with the owner, not just the brokers and the other advisors that both parties have. I think that's a key message here. That's where the real deal is done, I would argue, at that owner-to-owner level. And if you feel you're being rushed, if you feel you're being, you've got your arm twisted behind your back to get a deal over the line, do you know what? Something's probably not quite right. So this needs to be planned. It needs to be thought through. You need to give yourself time and headspace to work on this deal. And if it doesn't feel quite right, it probably isn't. So with that, Dan, we're going to just go to questions in a second. But if there's anything that sparked any interest today from what we said, either about growing your MSP or starting up or starting to plan or execute that exit, and you want to have a further chat, then please just book something via that email address. We're very happy just to have a non-committal 30-minute session with you, and you'll be able to walk away from that with some value, hopefully. So, comments, questions, or observations?
Please, one at a time.
We've got 5 minutes, so
you're not allowed to leave. Please.
Hello. Firstly, congratulations on the acting there. We're sure we'll see an Olivia Award. My name's Greg. I am from Northern. So we're an MSP based in Ireland. We are currently looking to expand into the UK, and we're seeing less and less MSPs on the market. Is that a trend generally, or is it region specific, if that makes sense? Have you noticed anything in this part of the world versus the Northwest versus the Northeast? Or is there a general, people are getting to their EBITDA number, and instead of taking 500,000 on, or sorry, 250,000 on a 5 times EBITDA, they're thinking, I can get this to 500,000 and get it on an 8 times EBITDA. So sellers are becoming more reluctant in the market. Are you noticing that anywhere else?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you look at the dynamics of the market over the last decades, M&A has become far more prevalent within our industry generally, and at the size of business that the majority of the MSP market is at. Yeah, there are far fewer £1 million EBITDA MSPs than there are £10,000 EBITDA MSPs. And in truth, the M&A that's happened already is probably taken a good chunk of the available market that was already there. And it's happened at an accelerated pace. So in effect, you've not had the development of the smaller MSPs to sort of backfill the pipeline. And at the same time as there's been more M&A, there's been more distribution or redistribution of knowledge and people within the industry. So there's plenty of former MSP owners around and about in circulation that find interesting ways to occupy themselves, some helping MSPs on that development journey. So yeah, they're not going to sell at the 500,000, they're going to push on because they're confident that they can get a much better return if they hang on for another few years. There's fewer and fewer people like Daniel the seller that is at that time ready to sell at that price point. And again, there's even more M&A activity because people have seen it happen and they've now seen the successful onward exit from those M&A roll-ups from a decade ago. And they're like, oh, actually, if he can do it, then I can do it too. So, and then that just bears more buyer pressure down onto the market. So yeah, I think we are in potentially an over-cultivated marketplace, and we're going to have to get more and more creative as buyers to find and nurture our targets.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that there's the US market are now looking at the European market, and they're coming over to the UK now as well, aren't they? And looking to acquire, because the US market is perhaps 2 or 3 years more mature than ours. So maybe that was getting a bit saturated, and so the buyers are coming over here, probably not helping where you're at right now. But there is always opportunity. There's always opportunity, and money is available. It goes up and down around the cost of that money, but it is available. There's lots of people looking to lend and get a return on that. So there's opportunity.
What would you say the sweet spot is for contract commitment? Obviously the buyer wants it as long as possible, but the clients want to have the option of maybe a year or 2 years max.
What was the sweet spot for
the contract commitment legs?
With clients? Okay. Well, a minimum's a year. Forget this monthly rolling rubbish, right? That's going to get you nowhere. Minimum of a year. Do you know what? 3 years, fine. I'm not that bothered once it's beyond a year, but personally, maybe some people see value in it. My own experience is not to worry too much. Okay, if you have the choice, probably 3 years better, but I wouldn't lie awake at night personally on that. But the more, it's more for me around, what does it look like as a track record? How long have they been with you? How do they value what you provide? What's the support structure and the account management structure around that? I'm going to look at all these things if I'm a buyer and what my risk is. And are they going to be a good fit for me as a client? Or, is the pricing give or take the same? Or am I going to have to double the price overnight and they're going to go? No, I don't want any of that. So those are the key things.
And Apadicus. And then this is probably us, I think. I can't see the lady that I was expecting to be throwing stuff
at us. Keep going.
Yeah, we're okay.
Actually, I've got 2 questions. Hopefully, 2 short questions.
Okay, don't take the mic off him.
No. First question is, you said it was really important for you to trust the seller. How important is it for the seller to trust the
Good
buyer?
question.
Yeah, so just in your little skit there, it was really interesting. And second question, really quickly, I get loads of bombarded letters coming through on LinkedIn and in the post and all that. We want to buy you. But they often have a 2 million turnover. So they'll say, we want to buy you if you're 2 million turnover. Why the 2 million? So 2 questions.
Well, the 2 million is because all of this transaction costs money. My lawyers, £1,000 an hour or whatever they're on, that's 30 grand. Brokers, they'll take 2%, 3%. That all adds up. My own time, my accountant's time, my finance team's time, the due diligence, all of this, it can rack up hundreds of thousands. And that cost is more or less the same whether it's a 2 million business or a 500,000 business. So do you know what? And also, it's about risk management as well. I've probably got bigger risks with that little small company where it's the owner has the relationships with the clients. Once he's gone, what are they going to do? He's looked after them for decades. Bigger company, probably got some account managers in there. There's probably less reliance on the owner. So, you're starting to think more corporately, and it's all about risk of retention. Does that answer that question? Yeah. And what was the second? The other question was around
Trust.
Trust
both ways. Absolutely, yeah. And I guess you get to a certain point, in all things, you get to a certain point where you just have to trust someone. And at that point, if you built sufficient trust, you have to just go with it. And I think just to add to Adam's point, if we are imagining we've got, in this case, there's this size of transaction, it was debts funded by the owner. And at the larger ends of the deal size, we've probably got private equity involved, which is a different dynamic, probably more rigid expectations than perhaps an owner-managed business might have. But equally, if we're private equity, we have an unlimited value that we can apply. So if we're going to do a deal We want to buy the biggest, best business we can because, as Adam said, there's a certain cost to doing a transaction. So why would we want to buy £5 to £100,000 EBITDA businesses when we can buy £1 million EBITDA business, and all of it's a company maturity that makes it probably a lower risk deal than our £5 to £100,000 businesses. So hopefully that.
And normally private equity starts at a minimum probably of $1 million to $1.5 million type revenue purchases, I would say. Yeah, US is probably bigger again. So.
Okay, I still don't see the lady with the sticks to get us off stage, but we're just coming up to 45 minutes. So I think probably if we want to be invited back again, we should wrap things up. There is one final ask I have of you, as well as immediately going and find David and Alex, who are the organisers of the show, and telling them that they must rebook us for next year immediately, because you really want to find out what happens during the due diligence stage. But the final request we have is we'd love a selfie, and this will appear on social media, and if I'll try and get as many of us in as we can. And as the slide says, smile as though you've actually enjoyed this session. Thank you very much. Give yourself a big round of applause. Lovely. Thank you.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you.